Oh, here you are. Wait.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Dissociation podcast, Beyond Binary, the human side of AI, data, and technology. My name is Peggy Sai, and I'm so excited to be one of the co hosts for Beyond Binary. With me tonight, I have Dr. Michael Proksch, who will be talking about his new book that just was released this week on Amazon, The Secrets of AI Value Creation. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. Very happy to be here.
Fantastic. We as we begin these different podcasts, my focus is going to be interviewing different AI authors, and I'm really interested in helping others understand not just the book writing process, but also highlighting the different research and the new information that you gathered as part of this book as well. So, really excited to be talking to you this evening. And also, before I forget, it is February 29th. Happy leap year, which I think is very great to have this occasion as well.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
just just a little bit about the background of the book, Michael. There's many talks and hype around generative AI today, and I'm seeing so many different books published around AI. So, can you just talk a little bit about how you came to be writing this book um, that's focused on AI value creation from strategy to execution?
Um, the journey to the book is has been more than 2 years, I would say, and it's based on the experience of three authors. It's not just me. It's Nisha Paliwal and Wilhelm Bielert, and they are um, the the other puzzle piece to build a book around value creation because the biggest challenge we see today is how do you actually drive value with AI, and it hasn't really changed for the last years. So we see new technology, new things coming out. There's a lot of hype, as you already said. There's a lot of interest, demand, but then for some reason there's not the value that organizations usually expect to be created in a lot of organizations. And the challenge is um, it comes from different areas, and it was, let's say, the journey to the book was with the two other co-authors. We came together and we found that we all bring something else to that value equation. Nisha with her background and seniority and data and technology, and Wilhelm and transformation and technology, and um, my background and of course in background in business, and my background in execution and operations um, and analytics. And for some reason, we found that they all came together and we created a framework which a lot of people when they read it, they're gonna say, oh yeah, I know, and that, okay, of course. But for some reason we don't put it together in a way that actually we are able to create value. And we realized, wait, there is no book really that talks about that. We're always very focused books, like point solutions to specific problems or specific areas, either about the technology or about analytics or about business, the impact on community, and but there was no holistic framework that explains the whole value equation problem. So we started researching and putting our experience together, and we're very lucky on that journey. We met many more people that confirmed, yeah, that something is missing, and
Well,
good that
that's what I like
you know
about your book as well, Michael. It not only has three co-authors from different backgrounds, but you invited other leading practitioners, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I know that upon reading the book excerpt, there are four main topics of the book, and could you just briefly talk about how you truncated and put out those themes of the book?
um I'd say it was a journey. we restructured the book
Right, with book writing.
we restructured the book a couple of times, and then we looked from the perspective of um, how can we help people the best way of understanding the creation of value, and how can we make it a guide to get there. And usually we start usually from the capabilities. What do we need? The technology, and we talk about hiring and data scientists and an engineer, but for some reason that's not enough. So you know Jeff Bezos and others told us better start from the end and go backwards. So we started the book from the end, and we talk about how can we. So what does value creation mean? And so we have 14 chapters, and the first one is learning from the journey of AI achievers, and we look at successful organizations in the space, and how have they done it, and what was their journey, and what were their milestones and steps. And for many of those organizations, it didn't go from one day to the other. For a lot of them, it was a 20-year journey. So that ended with AI, but they didn't start last year. They started with the foundations 20 years ago, and then we go and explain, how can you evaluate the right use cases, and where do you find those use cases, and what types of value creation can AI actually provide, right? From a business perspective, understanding the risks and the opportunities that come with it. So that's the part one of the book. And
It's
then we
a
have
that's a great overview of part one. Did you have to interview any companies? Like, which companies did you actually go do a deep dive on to provide examples for?
on many. So we
Oh,
provide
many.
a lot of very hands-on use cases where we actually calculate and walk the reader through how to overcome the challenges, and as I said, guide them through that journey. So we talk about John Deere, Coca-Cola, and others, and how they have done it. And we're very lucky that we're three very experienced people. We have a lot of experience in the space and can talk about our experiences in the past. So, and then we had lots of discussions, as I said, with other contributors to the book, and learn from their experience, and um, put that all together in one book. It became pretty big. So I kept apologizing. That's more than 200 pages. Now it's
Oh,
more
wow.
than 300 pages, 350 pages. Like, it got bigger and bigger, because like when you start there, we wanted to go to the end, right? So it's just, that's one part part one of the book. It has four. We then talk about the challenges that need to be overcome, and the unique nuances that AI requires in order to create value. And when we talk about the different challenges, we talk about creating trust with stakeholders. We talk about that AI is not just software. People are actually scared of AI. So, and how can you how can you create trust in the technology and the people that are doing it? So we talk about those elements. We talk about the limitations of AI. People usually um, let's say they compare AI to human intelligence, but that's not the same. So there are distinct differences where we make misconceptions, um, or we are when we talk about data. What data is actually needed? How do you actually collect valuable data for AI, and how do you make it actionable? So it's like we always talk about actionability, but it's more of a buzzword. Many people don't know how to
It
do it.
is actionability. I agree with you. Actionability is almost doesn't mean anything because
That's
people
right.
overuse that word. Before you continue on the different topics, who was the audience that you were writing this book to? Because I can see this being read by executives down to middle managers and and entry level data engineers. So who were you targeting when you were writing this book for?
That's a very good question. I would say we started with the intention to write it for people that are under pressure to provide value.
Mm.
So, and that was like, goes to the CIO, goes to the CDO, CDAO, CAO, chief AI officer. And then we realized that the pressure gets put down to the VP, to the director, and so on. So they all have a piece of the puzzle in their hands, but they need to understand how it fits in the bigger holistic picture and what they can do in order to contribute it. So we have a very broad target group actually. so
Mm, it
so
is.
that we try to support. So we try to make it understandable for business leaders that they learn what AI can provide and how what they need to do in order to create value with AI. We try to help the technologists and the analytics leaders to understand how they can contribute and how they can achieve value with AI, to the startup owners that want to create value and need to understand how they can do it within those organizations, because there's a high failure rate of AI startups today as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about AI startup companies as well. Very
Um,
interesting.
and from that perspective, we have a pretty broad target group where we try to serve and help to understand how they can create value or how they can contribute to the value creation of AI.
Okay, and so you covered topic one and topic two on trust. What are the remaining two topics for the book?
So the second part is about how you overcome the challenges, and some of them are known, most of them are known unknowns, and more than people think are the unknown unknowns. So if you haven't done it and haven't experienced it, there's not many books about those unknown unknowns. So we try to overcome those and talking about the challenges. The problem with that is then you have one use case that is successful. So how do you make it an initiative? How do you implement it into an organization? So, and that's part three of the book, talking about how do you create an AI strategy that is aligned with the business strategy and it's executable. So um, how do you run AI projects successfully? When we talk about waterfall, it usually doesn't work. um, Scrum doesn't necessarily work, at least in my experience. So there's a hybrid approaches that have worked for many organizations, and how do what is the project life cycle for those, and how do you build those out? Right? And then the cultural element to it. How do you create an AI friendly culture? How do you help people to understand what AI can do and how it can help them and how it can create value for them? So, and I think that's necessary to integrate, or we think that's necessary to integrate AI successfully long term into an organization. And we bring in a lot of examples where people have done that very successfully.
Wow, I think
And
that's a fantastic chapter. I mean, I hear that all the time with my customers. They're building very successful but discrete AI projects that are a bit siloed, and the challenges for them is certainly scaling it and making it enterprise. I think that's the theme that I see for 2024, um, for what a lot of organizations are trying to do. Um,
so,
so.
and how do you go beyond that one use case or two or
Mhm.
three, right? Um, and then the last part of the book is about the capabilities that are required. So we just went backwards from value creation, overcoming the biggest hurdles and challenges, to integrate it in the organization. And then how do you integrate it with the right AI technology? with data management, one very
Hmm.
critical piece, and then the right talent, right? And that's usually not just represented through the technical talent. There's a lot of non-technical talent and skills and competencies that are required in order to make it successful. And a lot of organizations have shown that. And I mean, we can always argue about the details, but it's more about understanding the individual capabilities that we need in order to create the business opportunity, to make it feasible, and to help the organization to adopt the technology.
It sounds like really great components of the book, Michael. I'm just curious, out of based on the research you're doing, I we all know that data culture is so important. I think it's the most important piece. I think culture eats strategy, right? Culture eats strategy for lunch. I
Yes.
think that's a very common saying. So, who, in your research and experience, who's the most important driver of this data culture? Is it more top down, bottom up? And if it's top down, what is the role of that person specifically?
Um, what I think there's a challenge that we have with the word culture, and that's because it's intangible. So,
Hmm.
like when we talk about culture, what does culture actually mean?
Yeah.
And then when we start to understand it and take it apart and understand what and we write about it extensively in organizational culture and how can you understand the different elements of it. We walk through the different ways how companies have implemented the right cultural values. So, what are the values behind those AI achievers, and then w- w- what did they do in order to create those, right? From workshops, helping senior executives, middle management, and and people in operations and frontline workers to really create trust, to understand the capabilities, to provide knowledge transfer, to help them um, understand the values that the technology requires. You need to be accepting that there's experimentation. You need to be innovative. It requires collaboration, and successful AI achievers have that in their organizations established. Right. We were very lucky that Scott Howard, CDO from Hewlett Packard, actually contributed to that chapter and writes about his own experiences and um, what he has done in the past in order to facilitate that AI for culture. So very interesting chapter.
No, I especially love the fact that you're able to include 14 individual contributors, and I know some of them as well. Fanny, who's a leading speaker as well in the data conference circuit. So get? How did you convince them to contribute to the book? And can you also highlight some other key contributors to the book as well?
I mean, we have 14 key contributors. To highlight one or two would be not fair.
Okay.
But we definitely it was more Nisha and Will, and Nisha had that she has a very big heart. You know Nisha Palival. So she works in the community. She's recognized as well as much as William Baylord, and they started talking to more people in their circle, and people reacted very positively to the book. And we talked about this more of a of a movement, of a community, and they people asked how can they contribute. That's where we came up with the contributors. Most of them were also we knew them before. We had a lot of conversations and we learned from them. So they were so kind to sorry to contribute with their personal experiences, their practices, stories, learnings at the end of the chapters, and that was very kind to to um, to support the book.
Sure. So there's a live question that's coming through that says, if culture is intangible, how do you create a culture of responsible use? I guess, how do you measure responsible usage of AI, of data, if it's also impossible, it's very difficult to measure culture. So that's a great question.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the whole concept of culture is very fluent. So it's like looking at different cultures. They define culture differently. So it's
Hmm.
like
That's true.
it makes it pretty hard to define culture and measure culture. And we've tried it many times in the um, interculturally to measure culture and develop and to measure different elements of it. Um, it is an ongoing topic. Let's say
I'm
that.
sure. I'm sure. And also, each organization has different values,
Yeah.
and they will therefore have different weightings for valuing culture. So, Michael, I just want to go back to the title of your book because it's so striking to me. And you're a former consultant as well, so I'm sure you used to get this question all the time from your clients: is what's my ROI? What's the business value? So, and I'm sure that's why you're focusing so much on um, the words value creation. So, as with any new technology, creating business value is always a challenge. So, but in what ways, though, is AI different from other technologies that also create business value?
When we look at AI, in general, AI is not different than anything else, right? So on one side, and on the other side, it is different than other things. Like, there are nuances to it. When you read the book, you will realize that a lot of things that AI achievers do are things that they have done before AI actually came, and they've done with other technologies, change management, project management. They just AI just requires a slightly different approach to it and has its own nuances that are required in order to create value. Nuances could be that if you look at dashboards, for example, or they look at just software. People are usually not afraid of software, but if people are having some rejection to AI because especially when you look at media today, everybody talks about how AI is taking away jobs. So everybody's
Oh,
very reluctant to work with AI, right? Or to support AI within an organizations. So and then AI has the opportunity to shift power within organizations. That's another challenge because it just uh, moves the organization away from a status quo to something new, and there's uncertainty associated with it. A lot of performance organizations, they're trying to reduce uncertainty and not bring it in. So so there's especially you try to avoid risk, right? So and then from that perspective, AI has its challenges in that way. And then the misconceptions or the everybody thinks about AI as self-driving cars, as robots, and taking
mhm,
away, taking away your day-to-day job, right? Because it's gonna replace you. But in the most cases around AI is like optimizing processes. It's about helping you with augmented information to make better decisions. And it's
exactly.
actually not necessarily automation in every case, right? It can help you to do a more efficient job, right? And I think there's a shift into to the we need to better understand the role we have next to AI. So because like we usually define our role based on knowledge and our comfort zone competencies that are repetitive tasks, but actually the biggest contribution we can bring with value is with our wisdom, the wisdom how you can grow and be more effective. And I think that's what it wasn't me that who said that. It was actually Akov many years who said that machines are not able to do that,
Mhm.
to create wisdom. And I think I agree with that's a human nature that we can grow and develop. AI can only do that based on what we teach them. So like talking about art, talking about combining different things, and and AI is restricted to that. And that's certainly a topic you can argue about, but it's like, from my perspective, that's where humans can, um, in the future, can grow and, beyond just, repetitive tasks, which is
Hmm.
a great opportunity, actually, if you see it that way, because then you can free yourself from things that are not important, right?
Yeah,
Or that,
you certainly made some great points there. Certainly with AI augmenting and not replacing a lot of human tasks. But certainly, I mean, we've all experienced using a lot of the generative AI technologies and have seen it being helpful and efficient. But there's also a completely different work culture shift. I'm sure the next generation has to face. I'm sure you've seen the comment by the NVIDIA CEO that says people don't need to learn how to code. It's the coding that should just be reflective of the natural language process. So
yeah.
there's certainly a lot of these um, comments that are certainly generating a lot of great conversation there. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the shift from programming to AI, and what else AI can really take over in terms of human work.
I mean, there's a differentiation between robotics and AI. Right? One is more physical, and AI is more cognitive, right? So when we talk about the cognitive work, I think it can definitely help us with everything that relates to knowledge and repetitive tasks. So the question is if we actually want to do those tasks, right? Some of them are actually not what we want to do, but it allows us, if AI can take over those tasks, to focus on something beyond that, create relationships, um, or help people in a different way, use wisdom to create value, and tell AI what to do. And I think those are, we just need to define our role next to AI in a different way. Um, and I think, yeah, it's definitely right that programming is gonna get less important. The challenge is gonna be, um, that whenever you trust AI in a way, you still need to understand what it does, and
Hmm.
that's the big challenge, to not trust AI too much, and to a degree be able to control it. And we are very quick in trying to drop the task and leave it to the technology, and then it fails.
Yeah.
Where you then say, "Hey, that wasn't unexpected. That was totally unexpected. It was actually not. It was just a probability game. It just came to the point that it wasn't able to make decisions because it didn't know the situation." Right?
Hmm. And there was also another interesting article I read this week where, and in the state of Missouri, a lawyer cited 20 something cases, and 18 of them were fake. They were completely generated by AI, and it's without that due diligence, that human intervention to check and validate, might not have been caught, right? That
Yeah.
the legal citations. So certainly we see AI proliferating and impacting a lot of areas. And there's a question here in the chat asking about what other areas do you think AI is replacing jobs? For example, the impact on accounting, marketing, legal, etc. Like, were there any chapters in your book that talked about careers and in other industries where AI is is such a big force of change?
The challenge is, that would be a prediction, right?
Oh,
You- and
a little bit, yeah.
the challenge is that it, we can't predict how we will react, right? So if you know that, tasks in marketing get automated more and more, so then you change your job to it. The job role might change, or even the job title, or you keep the job title, but tasks change. So it's really hard to say which jobs are going to get, um, changed or get eliminated but it's always how we react to it. Right? Um, we
That's
said
true.
many years ago that we would have self-driving cars by now. We do, but not like where we thought we would be. And so from that
Mhm.
perspective, it's like has to play out.
No, absolutely. So just going back to the audience, one of the audience personas of the book, which is the leadership executive persona. What type of effective strategies did you outline in your book that can help them use AI to propel and support business growth? Because without actual, business ROI and generating money, and that's always the eventual goal. What type of strategies were you able to talk about in the book that were effective?
I mean, we talk about various strategies, but I would say the big two is to understand what it can actually do and how it can do it. So I think taking apart when we talk about, like, when you say value creation, it's either for the whole initiative or for one use case that makes a huge difference. But it's like when we look at a specific use case, evaluating what value actually means. And value means that you have a business opportunity, and that includes costs and the impact on efficiency or revenue. And then you have the risks that are associated with it, and they're usually feasibility related or adoption related. So, and looking at those three factors can usually define the value that a use case can have for an organization. And we usually don't look at this from a very structured perspective. So I would say that's approach number one. And the approach number two, that we look at the AI uh, types of AI value creation. How can AI create value within an organization? Um, and those are, we actually talk about four of them. It's like business process optimization, which is usually the lower hanging fruit within the organizations. And then the decision augmentation or decision automation. And then the most complicated one is creation of AI products and services. And if you look at those four, they all are different based on their, the value factors we just talked about, the business opportunity and the feasibility and the adoption risk. And when we start to understand those, we're actually pretty good in understanding how AI can contribute to an organization. And I think the biggest opportunity actually goes back to Michael Porter back in the 80s.
Mhm.
He was talking about um, a competitive edge. And I think that's what AI can really do, is how can you create a competitive edge for an organization. And I think those are the four. It goes back to the four types, right? Business process optimization. How can you optimize the processes that are, in your industry, but others don't have that advantage, right? How can you augment and automate decision making, and lastly, how can you build products and services that help you to differentiate, um, and against competitors.
No, that's great. You can always rely on Michael Porter for these type of quotes here. So, and this is a live streaming podcast. So, please feel free to enter any of your questions. We'll talk more about AI, but I want to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit more about the book writing process, because I know that it's always difficult to balance, just working a full-time job. So, Michael, can you just talk about a little bit about yourself, what you currently do, um, on top of how did you balance writing and researching for this book, which was, as you said, 2 years ago, 2 years in the making.
So I mean, the idea, um, what I realized that when I was working consulting and later at H2O and others, I started repeating my stories over and over again, and I started to have the same, get a feeling of Groundhog Day in the conversations I had, and it's like, why don't we just write that down, and then with with the two co-authors. I am very lucky with two of my mentors, Wilhelm Bielet and Nisha Palival. We put together that overall framework, and we had help. We actually had help from a wonderful editor in India, Fishikari Hedge, who supported us in actually structuring our thoughts. So how can we make it more consumable and help people to understand that and what we want to talk about. And we had lots of discussions about, okay, is that important? Is that not important? Should we take that out? Should we leave that in? And so and we changed it over and over again. So up to the point that we were really, really lucky that Wiley said, yeah, that's a really good book, and we would like to publish it. And then we actually had the pressure to actually get it done. And that was then the last half a year, 9 months working with Wiley, and we were very lucky with a very professional team that supported us, all the editors and the whole process they put in place for us to be successful on finishing that process. But it was definitely um, um, I don't want to say full-time job, but it was definitely a lot of work, a lot of conversations, and um, without our editor, we wouldn't have been able to actually do it. To putting it all together and rewriting it over and over again. Um,
So obviously, it's a very long journey. So what surprises came about when writing the book or researching it? Anything that you learned that you didn't really know before, or just struck you as as surprising?
I mean, I learned a lot. Number one, I learned a lot about the process, and I learned a lot about people, and I learned a lot from people, from talking about the different topics and having those back and forth with a lot of people in my network on the different topics of the book. Um, I think I was the first time I talked to Villa and Bila about the topic, and I talked about the book, and then what I wanted to write about, and what how I talked about it. He said, "Okay, what's new to it? Like,
Hmm.
isn't that the same problem we had, with automation and others in the 90s and before?" And he was right. So that kind of came surprising to me. Like, wait, we had that many times before. We forget the old learnings,
Yeah.
and think because AI is new, everything is new. But it's actually not true. It's like there's many things that we can take from the past and learn, and we just need to adjust it a little bit to the nuances of AI. And there might be a different motivation, a different requirement on data. Right? When we look at AI, we can't aggregate. We can't build really means. AI wants to learn a pattern, right? So we need to have high quality data. It's not like we can, be sloppy on the data side. Otherwise, you can't learn the pattern, right? Or there's different nuances to the different elements and or the motivation, right? So why do people want to use AI? Right? That's different than just software or other technology. So from that perspective, there's or like project management and others. So how do you adjust it to what we already know? And then I realized that a lot of things we already did in the past, we already applied in the past. We just need to adjust it, or we adjusted it. So it was actually Nisha and Wilhelm that are the more senior people here that actually told me, like, okay, we've done that since the 90s.
Hmm.
Really? Um,
Yeah, a lot of the lessons learned with technologies, but specifically your background, Michael, in data science, data analytics. You're a chief scientist. Um, what specifically do you see AI helping to improve in the role of a data scientist?
I mean, how AI can help a data scientist?
Or just change the way they do their jobs, or
Mhm.
how they approach building models. You know, for me, I'm in data management. I data governance, and I see
Yeah.
AI or even machine learning certainly help look at aggregates of data differently and being able to assign and tag label almost automatically with a lot of prediction, right? So that's my viewpoint in how I see data management being improved with AI and generative AI. I'm curious though, in the role of a data scientist, um, where specifically AI is helpful and useful.
I mean, I think that the role of the data scientist has evolved over the last couple of years. So from a more of an engineering role and a more of a coding role to a more, let's say, business oriented consultant. Maybe that's too extreme, but there's different components that shifted, right? When I started to see the like 10 years ago, roughly, it was like when the hype started, right? And when the statisticians called themselves data scientists, and then um, and then you saw that in the role descriptions, you saw that the very broad definition of the role data scientist, from giving presentations and being the communications expert to being the engineer to being the statistician, being to you know um, and then it evolved more into a more technical role. And then I think the opportunity is now that the more technical pieces can be automated and can be taken over. So there's more opportunity getting closer to business, doing more change management, understanding better business operations, and those elements are become more, I guess, important in the role of data scientist.
Hmm. Okay, I mean, certainly, I'd love to hear from anyone else in the audience as well, and different roles, different industries, where they see AI making a profound difference. So I know, Michael, one of the biggest things I know about you and Nisha and Will is certainly the community aspect of all of you are very community oriented. So, and you also are speaking at conferences and you teach at top universities such as the Thunderbird University of Global Management. And you also mentor a lot of future leaders in the data and AI space. But I also saw that you posted about a community platform, www.aivaluesecrets.com, around this book. Can you talk more about this community and what you hope for that community to do and achieve?
I think what the biggest value that book brought me personally was to have more discussions around the topic and to learn on the topic from my co-authors and from the contributors. And I think that is something we would like to support more, and to support more into how can you actually do it? How can you execute on it? And I think there's more done that needs to be done besides reading the book, right? And I think that we started that platform with the book to give people not just an opportunity to download more material to actually implement it within their organizations, but also to connect with each other and actually to uh, to learn from each other and start talking about the topic and their challenges. And I don't think that the challenges and the stuff we talked about in the book is exclusive, and it's not it's not that's not it, right? There's more to it, and there's more challenges and more detailed elements with specific industries or organizations that go beyond what we talked about in the book. So I think that those are things we can discuss and learn from each other, because what we did, we learned from each other. So by writing that book, I learned a lot from Nisha, I learned a lot from Wilhelm, and I learned a lot from all the contributors and how they approach the topic and the problems, and um, what they did in order to create value in the past.
It certainly sounds like a lot of synergies between what you're building in the AI value creation community and what the association that AI is doing as well. So bringing that community together. So I think we have one final question. If there's more, feel free to pop it in. But this the most recent question is, what is the number one skill that you recommend data scientists to pick up on or brush up on in the AI world? It's a great question.
Yeah, it is. And I think the biggest advantage data scientists have today is the business domain knowledge, deep business domain knowledge. So if you can bring together business domain knowledge and data science, I guess you're going to be pretty successful um, on a more value creation side. And then of course you have a lot of soft skills that are required in order to be successful. And brushing up on those definitely helps um, to guide stakeholders. I think we need to move away from asking what are your requirements to guiding them to what they actually want to achieve. Because I think that's another challenge we have. We usually ask what they want, but they don't really know what they want, or they don't know
Mhm.
what's possible. They know what they want, but they don't know what's possible. And if we help guiding them based on because we understand what they're trying to achieve, I guess you're going to be way more successful as a data scientist than just being the technical lead on a project.
I absolutely agree with you there. And the same question would have been answered the same way, but just taking out the word in this AI world, right? I think
Yeah.
even without AI, um, many years ago, I mean, certainly I always encourage my data scientist colleagues to learn the subject matter, learn the business domain, be able to story tell their results and analysis. But I love how you said data scientists can be more of a guide with a business, because absolutely business don't know what they want. They don't. It's hard for them to articulate what they're looking for, but by approaching um, the data and the solution with these type of better responses, I think the data scientist team can be more better integrated
Yeah.
into the business as well.
And I think they mostly know what they want. I just don't always. I mean, they don't know how to get there, and they don't know what they don't know. So if we don't help understand what the technology can do, um, they business has challenges in understanding what's actually possible. And I think that's an interesting way of you know growing in that direction to help actually how can AI create value by actually showing it and guiding the discussions in the right direction.
Absolutely. So before I close out this podcast, Michael, I just want to give you a chance. Where can people buy this book? Is it available? Want you to give one last promotion for this book before we close out tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we have the book on Amazon. I guess it's in a lot of bookstores now available. Um, It's internationally available, so we're gonna. I guess there's gonna be a digital version. There's gonna be an audio version hopefully soon. It's gonna get translated hopefully in different languages. So we're working on different areas there. But um, go on Amazon, buy it, and then give us feedback. So we definitely want to learn. Nisha, Will, and me, we're very curious. We are answering questions. We're happy if you contact us and reach out. So we would love to learn from you and your experience, and you know, join the discussion and create value together.
Absolutely. So we will be sharing the link to your community and also the title of your book on our website, theassociation.ai, and our community site. And love to have more of our members talk about the book and collaborate with you. But in the meantime, everyone, please follow Michael on LinkedIn. He does post a lot of really great articles, and to learn more, and perhaps you'll have a book tour as well, a book signing tour perhaps, and we can all meet and talk about this in person as well.
Yeah, that would be great. So yeah, we're gonna. I have a couple of conferences I visit, and Nisha and Will are traveling and talking about the book here and there. So If you see us, reach out, say hi, shake our hands, have a coffee. We'd love to.
Absolutely. And I'll be the first one there as well. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a fantastic episode 2 of Beyond Binary. Really excited to have had this wonderful chat with Michael and really talk about value creation and AI strategies. And if you are an AI book author or you recommend an AI book for us to talk about, interview, please feel free to share any suggestions, and we'll make sure they're added to this lineup. So thank you for attending tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite. I'm always happy to come again.
Bye bye.
Bye.